Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon you. Today, we celebrate something so unique, so special. We celebrate a gift of God, a gift of nature. We celebrate the power of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is like a flower with 5 beautiful petals. The first petal reminds us that it gives us essential medicine the moment the baby is born. It contributes so much to immunity and to better health in the future. The second petal reminds us that it is amazing nutrition. It contains everything that the baby wants, everything that the baby needs. The third petal of the flower is that it is ecological. It's so natural. There is no waste. There's no production cost, no transport cost. It is there, given as a gift of nature. The fourth petal is good economics. You don't have to spend money. You don't have to spend money. And it is a huge amount of money to plunge into substitutes. So, economical. The fifth is something probably the most unique, and that's love, the fifth petal. And love, the bond between mother and child, the way they look at each other's eyes, the way they clutch each other, that is so magical. Unfortunately, this flower, this beautiful flower with these 5 petals that remind us of its power and beauty, is being threatened. We live in a world that breeds on greed, on manipulation, on waste. It was once estimated by the United Nations that globally some 3,000 to 4,000 babies die a day because we do not do enough to support and protect breastfeeding worldwide. Yes, yesterday, today, tomorrow. And yes, every day there is a massacre of children, of the innocent. And they occur because breastfeeding was undermined for over a century by ignorance, by neglect. It was exploited by what we call cash register ethics. That is money, money, and money. It is a US dollars 70 billion industry. Can you imagine that? There was in fact over the century a massive collective failure that undermined women's ability and the child's need in the name of convenience and modernization. It required a generation of health professionals who had the courage, the competence, and the creativity to make a global change. And they got the United Nations, especially the World Health Organization and UNICEF, to put back in place this wonderful gift of God, this wonderful gift of nature. They put in place a new vision and a new standard for infant and child feeding. The movement back to nature, back to love, has begun. And despite still the evidence of the great benefits of breastfeeding, of early and exclusive breastfeeding, it is still very low, around 40%, and it hasn't improved much. It hasn't improved much, despite the last 2 decades of advocacy and investments all over the world. The United Nations gave us an international code. We had subsequent resolutions that meant to control marketing. But we continue still in a big way to be failing and to be deficient in the action for change. We need a new surge forward, always to promote, to protect, and to support breastfeeding. We need new actions all the time against the epidemic, what is called commerciogenic malnutrition, that is malnutrition caused by the industry itself, by giving us things that are not good for us, that undermines the children's health by all kinds of unhealthy foods. Now we know that there are nearly more obese people in the world than there are those suffering from hunger and malnutrition. Yes, obesity, something that if you breastfed your baby, it helps them not to have that. It's now one of the greatest diseases of these times. And sadly, Asia is a victim of this. And even more sadly, Malaysia is among the worst. But Malaysia, taking the world as a whole, is also a star in some of the things that it's done. Some of the things that has ignited admiration and ignited respect. 8 decades ago, in Malaya, it was, as we were then most of the peninsula, as we were globally known at that time, in Malaya, we saw the first pediatrician, you can say the first lady of breastfeeding, who made a wake-up call to the world. She spoke courageously, condemning the way in which infant formula was being promoted and used. She made a speech called Milk and Murder, referring to the horrific dangers of infant formula. There are some 21 dangers. There's a very nice leaflet prepared by WABA that you can get that explains each one of those dangers in detail with the scientific advice. This pediatrician, Dr. Cicely Williams, who later became the first director of the World Health Organization's Maternal Health Division, worked here in this part of the world, in Terengganu, next door to Kelantan. During the war, she was a prisoner and was held in Changi prison in Singapore. While in Changi prison, she noted in her diary, 20 babies were born. All 20 were breastfed, and all 20 babies survived. Malaysia continues this legacy of respect for breastfeeding. And the government of Malaysia and the people of Malaysia have demonstrated especially 5 things that have made us, this country, very special. Some 3 decades, firstly, some 3 decades ago, you could say the 5-point star, the first point of the star was that Malaysia was one of the first countries to develop a voluntary code of ethics in the marketing of breast milk substitutes. It was quite an achievement. And we were also the 3rd country in the whole world to make all government hospitals baby friendly, in compliance with the United Nations standard. The third point to start, Malaysia also became among the unique countries to have a dedicated national lactation center. Something quite rare the world over. 4th point of the star, Malaysia hosts the International Code Documentation Center, ICDC, which is the global authority on monitoring violations of the United Nations Code, and the premier capacity building institution in the world, having trained hundreds of government, professional, and social activists on how to implement the code, how to draft it, how to make sure that it makes a difference. It also publishes the most authoritative manual on the subject, and every few years shames the companies that do not comply with the code all over the world. The 5th special star for Malaysia is that it is also the global headquarters of the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, the coalition that brings together all the key organizations and individuals that are interested in promoting, protecting, and supporting breastfeeding. For the last 27 years, WABA has planned World Breastfeeding Week that is now celebrated over 175 countries of the world, celebrated by governments all over, celebrated by this professional organizations and breastfeeding groups. The design of this, the implementation of this, the promotion of this particular World Breastfeeding occurs out of our country, out of Malaysia. This is so special, it's such an honor. Every year also, WABA organizes an International Breastfeeding Advocacy and Practice course in Penang, which has participants from all over the world. It's also doing a whole range of other things on maternity protection, on, you can say, every aspect which it promotes through the World Breastfeeding Week, through its publications, through the literature that it shares. You can look at their website, www.waba.org, and you can see the amazing things that this organization does. Yes, Malaysia has demonstrated amazing leadership to the world breastfeeding movement. But yet, sadly and unfortunately, we still have some of the lowest exclusive breastfeeding rates in the region. Our sincere and hard efforts in protecting, in promoting and supporting breastfeeding is in need of a wake-up call again. It is awaiting a new surge and a new transformational plan for action. I hope that in Malaysia, Bharu, we can make this happen. Unfortunately, at this time, breastfeeding continues to be undermined by unconscionable commercial practices, lack of mother support, and sadly, the proliferation of so-called fortified and follow-up milks. Malaysia has also sadly on the top league in the region on obesity. We are suffering a great danger of what has been described as commerciogenic malnutrition. We need change. We need an urgent and more robust move forward in this area. So what is the future? What can we do? Civil society groups in Malaysia have developed a 5-point charter for nurturing this future. Remember a wheel. Remember I talked to you about the flower with 5 petals. I spoke to you about the star with 5 points. And now a wheel of 5 spokes to get us moving again into a new mode of stronger action that will give women, children, and the country a better, a healthier future. The 5 actions are as follows. Firstly, we need to make the current voluntary code into law. We must make it into law. Voluntary codes are not taken seriously. Sri Lanka did it in 1987, and in 20 years raised their level of exclusive breastfeeding from 15% to 75%. 5 times jump. Amazing things can be done if we take it seriously. Secondly, we must move forward aggressively, assertively on making all private hospitals to become baby friendly. Give them a timetable, 2 to 5 years, say just like in the government hospitals. We must get it done. It must happen. There should be zero tolerance of violations, and we should generate greater action on the abuse of marketing of follow-up milks, which are subtly and disturbingly undermine breastfeeding and hospitals, particularly private hospitals. The third spoke of the wheel is that mother support facilities must be made a legal necessity. The Companies Commission of Malaysia, the CCM, guidelines have already been developed together with UNICEF. They give us a basis. They must be supplemented with more vigorous action on the ILO's requirements that comply with the relevant ILO conventions on maternity protection. There must also be strong support for the facilities for mother support at the community level. Thanks also to UNICEF's pioneering work, the peer counseling movement in Malaysia is now one of the new greatest support system operating in Malaysia. We have been inspired by also the expertise of practicing mothers themselves. And there is now a Facebook of practicing mothers that has some nearly 150,000 members. An amazing leap. It is called, the network is called TBAN, the Breastfeeding Advocacy Network. I mean, that's a huge, huge breakthrough. This is amazing resurgence where mothers are speaking out, and mothers are helping themselves, and mothers are doing something so inspiring that it is becoming a model and moving other mothers. The fourth spike of this wheel, I think it is time that a proper, well-organized Malaysian Breastfeeding Council is set up. That every year comes up with a report on the state of breastfeeding in Malaysia. This Breastfeeding Council must also adopt very clear conflict of interest, very clear assuring that conflict of interest and industry groups do not influence it, because this has happened too often in too many parts of the world. The fifth wheel is that Malaysia has a great opportunity as one of the leaders in the Islamic world to do something quite unique. UNICEF and WHO, together with them and with other people, we could do a world conference on childcare in Islam. A very special initiative that will move a community where breastfeeding is considered very special. This can be done together with the Organization of Islamic Countries to inform, to sort of inspire and take the initiative to make better infant and breastfeeding policies everywhere in the Islamic world. It is in the Quran that talks about breastfeeding. It will be a great opportunity. There was a wonderful book that was done. It was called Child Care in Islam. It was done in 1985 by Al-Azhar University and UNICEF. It needs to be looked at again. And perhaps together Malaysia can produce a wonderful new book that can be another inspiration to the whole of the world and to the Islamic world. So brothers and sisters, I'd like you to remember the 5 petals of the flower that remind us of the power of breastfeeding. I'd like you to remember the fact that Malaysia is a star in the breastfeeding movement in terms of what it has done, the institutions that are here, the capacity building activities that are occurring here. And I want you to remember the wheel of the 5 spokes of action, that we could all work together to make things happen. We can together move forward vigorously for the sake of our children and for the sake of the nation, for the sake of making a better world that is healthy, that is eco-friendly, and gives us economics that helps make a better world, that promotes, that protects and supports breastfeeding like never before. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share these thoughts with you. I wish all of you every success in your journey ahead to make Malaysia continue to be a bright star in the protection, promotion and support of breastfeeding, and a model and an inspiration to the rest of the world. The World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action will work closely with you to help in making all that happen. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.